We are now recording the July 5th, 2019 Small Business Accounting Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Happy 4th of July, Post.
Yes.
Happy day after 4th. Hope everyone enjoyed their 4th. Dennis is bringing up his funny videos.
Okay, you can see this dog cage.
We have a dog cage, yes.
Okay, this dog's pretty creative.
And it looks like a little beagle. Wow, wow. I can't even see what he's standing on. Is it the fence?
This fence is
Climbing
good.
up on the fence?
Yeah.
And he's going to the top? Is somebody...
So you can see they've already boarded it off and put a brick up there.
Yeah, this dog must have done this before. He knows, oh, look at that. Look at his little face. He's done it before. Here he comes. Oh, you think you can cage me? Oh, I'm out of here, Jack. Yeah, his little buddies are left in there. He can't unlock the door, though. And now he can't get down. That's a long way for that little dog. There we go. Back. Oh, he did it. Look at all his little buddies. Hey,
So
forgot about us.
Okay, I've got to see if I can find this one.
Cute.
so Sarah's brother had a Jack Russell that would do the same thing. It could climb out, and it actually could. You know the triangular windows. They don't have them anymore, but that you used to have in the cars that you could open up for ventilation up in the front windows.
Mm-hmm.
He would wiggle out of there.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, can you see this now?
Okay, yes.
Okay, this woman has very quick reflexes.
Quick reflexes. Okay. Is that an elevator? Elevator, woman, little child, man. Oh my God.
She caught him by the ankle.
When you're a mom, you can do amazing things.
Well, something's not code.
Yeah, yeah. That's why they have codes. Wow.
Okay, then I've got
An extreme blast. Okay.
no, I haven't got that one. Let's see. This one. Can you see? Can you see this one?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I saw this.
Oh my gosh, right?
Some people say that's fake.
I don't know. I believe it can be done. You can do that. You can do that with a bowling ball, but I would you know.
I wouldn't be standing anywhere near it.
Because it could be released anywhere.
This one's not fake though.
Well, if he went down he could have knocked the pins down, left the ball behind.
And I kind of like this last one.
Insert the flat metal fitting into the buckle of the strap to tighten to release the hemisphere proportion of the buckle. Turbulence may occur with warnings. We recommend that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times, even when the seatbelt sign is off. In the event of emergency, and to break. Refer to your safety features card for your room position. Do not take any carry-on items with you during evacuation and follow the directions of the flight crew. There's a total number of 18 emergency exits on board this aircraft. There are 4 window exits located in cabin over the wing, 2 emergency doors are located in the forward, and 2 emergency doors in the rear.
Bored with doing the same thing all the time. Wanted to do a little bit more amusing.
As per, floor level lighting will come on automatically. You guessed it, illuminated exit sign. Now should the cabin pressure change, full oxygen mask will automatically drop from the panel above you. Remain seated immediately while the mask is
People want to fly just to see you
Empty elastic dress. Pull on the two loose ends at the front to tighten. Please on your own mask prior to twisting others.
Oh dear.
In front of you, ensure your seat is upright in your tray space. If your electronic device becomes loose, do not adjust the seat or try to retrieve it. Call your cabin crew for assistance and always use care when retrieving your carry-on items from the overhead bin to avoid injury to yourself or other guests. Thanks for making this part of your flight today. Back relax and enjoy the flight.
Oh, he's gonna do it in French. That is good. Does anybody
So
speak
he
French?
certainly has a captive audience for sure.
Old style humor.
Veuillez nous accorder votre attention alors que nous présentons les mesures de sécurité suivantes. Vous trouverez devant vous une carte des mesures de sécurité concernant.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dennis. That was fun. Okay.
Little variety.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to talk, I think, more about Microsoft than anything else today. Sarah's going to talk to us about OneNote and Teams, but she's on the phone with her Teams right now. So we'll move on to Ernest. Ernest wants to talk to us about instead of downloading to Excel, downloading, what did you call it? To query?
Well, so, you know, just to set the stage, so this was all prompted by the fact that, you know, I saw this article from Nerd Enterprises today. How to analyze detailed sales from QuickBooks Online and Pivot Table. Of course, this is the kind of thing that I do all the time. So I was like, well, let me see what he's got to say. And basically, this is his downloaded file. So he had gone into QuickBooks Online and very meticulously goes through lots of steps that you would need to repeat every time you wanted to go do this analysis, right? So, you know, you would go up here and select down to the bottom of the spreadsheet, then make it into a table and a lot of other steps, right?
Right.
Ultimately, so this is actually his file. Ultimately, so you could come into your pivot table report and do some of the really cool things that you can do in pivot tables, right? Which is, you know, add and subtract fields, you know, quickly on the fly, bring it back to, you know, an aggregate. And let me just be clear. Pivot tables are the most awesome thing in the world. And if you're doing accounting and you're not doing pivot tables, you should probably invest some time in doing that. So I think pivot tables are cool.
With you, Ernest,
So,
but a lot of people just are not there. They just don't understand it.
yeah. But so the exception that I don't have an exception with pivot tables, and we can have a whole conversation around, you know, how to get into pivot tables. But what I want to focus on instead of whether or not pivot tables are cool is this whole repeating steps over and over again. I went to a tech conference once, and we talked there about a concept of code debt. And this concept of code debt is where you go out and you do, you know, I want to make I want to do some quick analysis. So you might, oh, okay, I'll go create these steps and it'll do something. Well, when it becomes a thing that the owner wants to see every time, or your client wants to see every time, you're going to repeat those steps over and over and over every month. And you've created a little bit of debt in terms of your analysis that you're going to provide to customers. So I'm going to give you an alternative. So instead of going through all those meticulous steps every time, I want to talk about something very different. All right, so I'm going to go over here to QuickBooks Online. All right, and if you're familiar with QuickBooks Online enough to know that you can actually save a report, right? So all I did was I went out and I said sales by product service detail report for the current year, and I went into the customize button over here, and I literally selected every field. That's all I did was I just checked off every one of the boxes, and so that gave me kind of a report over here that's got a lot of information about sales, right, for the current year, and then merely export that off to Excel, right? So that was, sorry, I got people trying to call me here. So literally, once you download this into Excel, it becomes kind of a different thing. So what I did was I wanted to be able to do this over and over. So I saved the file in a very, and this is a key part of the solution here, I'm saving the file in the exact same place every month or every time I want to go do it, right? So in my case, it's client file, sample company, sales data. Now here's where the real magic comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and close this file from our friends over at Nerd Enterprises. And I'm going to instead come over to the file that I created. And the first thing that I'm going to redo it, I went into data and I said, and this is a fairly new feature. This is where we start giving out the acronyms. Power Query, right? There's some great books. This is one of them here. Collect, combine, and transform data using Power Query. And I'm going to forget the last few words, but it's Power Query that we're talking about here, right? Power Query is the important thing. So under Get Data, I have the ability to go from an Excel file. So if I say go get the information from Excel file, right here it is, sales details. I navigate to that directory, and then I can hit the import button. And once I select on this tab here, I'm going to hit the button that says transform data. This opens up the interface, which is, in fact, Power Query. So Power Query is this phenomenal tool built into Excel and the current versions of Excel that allow you to record as if it were a macro all of those steps that you're doing for automating the data. So in this example, right, the header looks like it's the first few pages. Seth went through that process and deleted those. You have to do those every time. I'm just going to say remove the top 3 rows, right? And now the top 3 rows have been deleted. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say what I'd like to do is promote those first row just to be the headers for my data. Now, the important thing that I want you to focus on is over here on the right-hand side where it says applied steps. That's every time I'm doing an action in the interface, it's recording the things that I do. So let me go demonstrate how this is interesting. So if I go click over here on the source, right, I'm gonna walk down all the changes that I've been making, right? And it's kind of recording it. Now the nice thing about that, and this is why I want to talk about it, is it doesn't matter if it's client 1, client 2, client 3's files, they've recorded those steps. Now I don't want you to get scared when I do this, but what I want to do is I want to show you underneath the covers this gobbledygook. This gobbledygook is the exact syntax of how it's actually saving that. This is called the M language. M as in monkey. There's actually a book by that name. If you get into this, you want to read that. But the important thing is all the steps are being recorded here. So no matter which client file it is, I've done them, right? All I have to do is grab that information and I can go forward and do that. So if I want to do some additional things in here, so one of the things that comes to mind is inside the account, we have some divisions, right? Landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. So I can split a column by, what is it, a colon, I think it is. Right, and magically, it's just going to actually break things up into different hierarchy levels. So I mean, I'm not going to go into all of the things that you could possibly do here, but I just kind of wanted to give you a flavor for some of the kind of interesting things that you can do here. In fact, I'm going to undo this one. And that's literally how easy it is to undo something. Oh, I don't want that one. Undo that step. I could literally go in the middle and undo a step. Depending on what that is, it might have bad consequences. But once I do that, I say close and go load that into a pivot table. Okay, and so now I've got the same pivot table, and I can take my same dollar amount and drag it down there. I can take my same customer and I can drag it over there, and I can do all the other things that he was talking about there. But when I want to go and get an updated version of that, after I've downloaded the file in QBO and saved it into my directory, all I need to do inside my Excel file is come up to data and hit the refresh button, and all that work's already been done.
So I'm still not sure how, once you're done with that and you save it, all you need to do is go back to the source file and open it in Excel, and you'll be able to recreate all of those steps.
Yeah, so because the Power Query is recording all of those steps, when you hit refresh, what it's going to do is it's going to go look at the current version of the file that you've downloaded in that directory. It's going to open that file, and it's going to apply all of those steps of transforming the data, transforming it from a report out of QuickBooks into the raw data that you were using for your reporting. So I think that's what's really useful about that is you've recorded those steps once, and then you can reuse those steps over and over. So you're not constantly having to do that, you know, cleaning up.
If you wanted to do it with a new client. So.
Okay.
Mark is showing us Power BI.
Yeah, well, there's another book. This is by this Rob Colley is one of the authors, and he is one of the original people on the Power Pivot, Power Query, Power BI team. So.
Yeah, Rob was the program manager at Microsoft. Actually kicked this whole thing off, and then he left Microsoft and started his consulting company. He's a pretty nice guy. Travels all over the world now.
I have a question.
Showing off the great power of it. Go ahead.
Can you save the structure of the pivot table as a generic, or do you have to, like when the data comes back in, do you have to redo the steps, you know, the dragging and dropping, or if you wanted to frame a generic frame for all of your, assuming you get your data structure and all the different, for all the different companies in the same format in the Power Query, can you save pivot tables based on that Power Query and then not have to reconstitute?
Yeah, actually, no, that's a great question. So let me have a look at that real quick, you know, with you. So what's happening here is we're creating. I've done it twice in this spreadsheet, which is why you see it twice. We're creating a brand new source, right? So if I wanted to, I could come down here, create a brand new spreadsheet, and I can say, I want to insert a pivot table from the.
You're not sharing your screen. I don't know if you want to share your screen or not.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, forgot about that.
Yeah, and what?
Let me do that again.
Ernest wasn't manipulating the file that he downloaded from QuickBooks. That's only being used as input into the spreadsheet that he created, which is what he's going to show right now.
Yeah, so now, because I've already done the Power Query thing and I hit the refresh, if I want to create something brand new, I'm going to go insert a pivot table using the data model, which I've talked about right over there. And now, right, so let's just say that I want to do, let me do something customer, then I'll drag the dollar amount in there. And then I'll do the date over here, right? If I wanted to save that, right, I could save that off as the client 1, and I can come back, download the file, do a refresh, and be client 2. So I have this exact same analysis available for multiple clients, right? So this one is, what is this one, by customer?
And once you save this spreadsheet that he's created, then yeah, you would open this spreadsheet and you have all the Power Pivot that you created earlier. The pivot table you created earlier is still going to be there.
Right.
It's just, and you just download a new file, save a new Excel file using the same report format into the same directory you saved it in before to allow it to update, go through that process to update. So. Yeah,
Right.
I've used it. It's very helpful too, because it'll take input that sometimes you save reports to Excel and they're pretty messy. They've got all kinds of headers, headers in them that they're designed to be printouts, and they repeat rows and things like that. You can use that Power Query to filter all that stuff out and get to the raw data. And I've even used it in situations where you might have in column A, the first column has the name, right? And then you have, then the other columns have values for that same name, but that name isn't repeated in all the columns. So, gosh, how do you deal with that? And it's actually, the Power Query makes it very easy to copy that name down to all the corresponding rows, and then when it hits a new one, it copies that down. So it's very so just to be clear,
right? So this is the original downloaded data from QBO, and then that's the final report, right?
I'm sorry, Ernest. Share your screen again.
Oh.
Yeah, we see you.
Right.
Please share your screen.
Okay.
All right, so this is the downloadable data, and just to kind of demonstrate the point, rather than create transactions in QBO and download it again, although I could, I'm just going to change a couple of the numbers here to make them outrageous, and then I'll go into the final report as though it's kind of been updated, and then what we should be looking at then. In a number, right? So instead of 4, I'm going to go with 4,000. So who are we doing this for? Bill's Windsurf. All right. So we're gonna, and of course, I guess I have to that times that. So I'll save that report. And now go into the final report, which is, so just pretend, if you will, that all we've done there is we've downloaded from QBO again, and now we want to go give them an updated version of that report.
So, and the key things are that you use the same format when you create the the report in QuickBooks Online, that you download it to the
Right.
same location and you name it the same thing.
I have a question or two.
Yeah.
Say, for example, in the QuickBooks data, you want to create some calculated fields, maybe based on a select case function or a nested if function. You would do that? Can you get that coded into the Power Query, or do you have to do it?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great question. So what I would say is, yeah, you would do it after the downloaded data. So, and the beauty of it is, so I've done this assuming, I've done this assuming no changes to the original data, but inside Power Query, you can create lots of functions. You can, it's really a tool, literally, to transform your data into something else. So if you create your formulas there, then they'll be repeated every time, right?
Okay, so when you're recording your functions or your measures or whatever in the data set, it's not going to come down that way in QuickBooks, but when it gets to Excel or whatever, then is it kind of like a macro? You can make it repetitive so you wouldn't have to do it every time, or
yeah.
And that's kind of
Yeah,
stuff I used to do
so
when I was in another life. I used to do that kind of stuff with Access and Excel, and
yeah, so it's really handy, right? I mean, because pivot tables are obviously incredibly powerful. That's why I kind of jumped on that. I'm like, what do you say about pivot table? Because in the product that I support primarily, right, the Cube product, we start with pivot tables. So for me, pivot tables are really second nature. I've been using them for, I don't even know, long, 15, 20 years.
They've been around since the early 90s.
Huh?
See, they've been around since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So
but they're just really powerful.
Ernest, what are the differences between Power BI, Power Query, and Power Pivots, and when would you use each one? Because to me, this looked like you used Power Query and Power Pivots at the same time.
Yeah, so I haven't even used Power Pivot today.
Okay.
So all I've used here in this conversation today is Power Query, right? So Power Query's tool, its primary purpose, its entire reason for being is to allow you to prepare, transform your data for some type of reporting. And the output of a Power Query is information that's available in a data model. So if you look up here in the toolbar of Excel, I'm in the Data tab. And inside the Data tab, there's something called the Data Model. In this one, because I've got two weird queries, I'll open it and you can see this is the information that I pulled together, right? So all of this information is fed into the data model as a result of the work that I did in Power Query. When I said put it into the data model, that actually invoked the Power Pivot engine, but that's not really a requirement in order for you to be able to leverage this, right? Power Pivot by itself is a whole other animal, a whole other conversation, and there's a whole lot of things that you can do. some of which would be scary for, the average bookkeeper. But, so I can go down here as an example using DAX, and I can do some summations of lots of fields, and I can write all kinds of crazy formulas right here. But that's really not really what I was kind of trying to talk about today. So Power Query is under data, this one right here, the Power Query editor, right? The output of that is transformed information, okay? Power Pivot is a tool inside Excel that takes that transformed data and allows you to create formulas that are much more complex than you could do inside Excel. And now let me say
also,
this. Go ahead.
Yeah, it also is. So the Power Pivot part becomes helpful if you have multiple tables that you need to. You've got data from multiple reports, and you need to link those up somehow. Now, a lot of people are used to using VLOOKUPs or things like that. The Power Pivot could be used instead of that. Because you could create relationships between different Power Query inputs. So if that makes any sense.
Isn't Power Pivot like having a SQL database in Excel? I mean, you don't have the limitations on rows, and you can create joins on the primary and foreign keys and that kind of stuff. As opposed to
so it literally instantiates a SQL Server analysis server instance, not a regular database, but the cube-based database. That's why you can write DAX against that.
Okay.
And Power BI, you are opening up now. Is that a separate program altogether?
It's a separate program altogether, and it's very, very, very different in terms of its display tool. So I'm gonna open this up with Excel, and the first thing that I would actually kind of like let you see is it's going to literally open up Power Query here. So this is why this is such an incredibly powerful tool, right? Is once you learn Power Query, you can use it in Excel, and you can use the exact same syntax inside the Power BI desktop. And what's really fun about that is, so I don't know if you saw me cutting and pasting that little M language back there, but I'm going to come right over here in this editor, and I'm going to paste that exact same step, all those steps in here. Right? And so you want to talk about repeatability. I've just saved all of that work, and now I'm actually ready to go build visualizations, right? Which is what this tool's strength is to take that information and put it in a format that will allow you to graphically see your sales data, right? So all of the same work that I did in terms of cleaning up the data happened over there, right? So now I'm just going to drag some fields out on my screen and just let it magically build some charts for me, right? So there's that incredibly obnoxious invoice that I edited, right? So just so that we can actually see things a little clearer, I'm going to go in and add a filter. I think I am, if it cooperates with me, to try to get rid of that dollar amount.
Yeah, and you can drill down to the data too while you in here too.
Could you write a macro, whatever, to do a series of charts based on the data? once it gets down there? I mean, can you, rather than having to manually do it all the time, can you just create like a back row or whatever?
Well, once you save that, once you save this Power BI file, you open it back up, and just like with the Power
Excel file.
Excel spreadsheet, and like in the Excel spreadsheet, you change the underlying data source, that file that Ernest downloaded from QuickBooks online. You save it again, save it to the same way, or same format, the same name, the same place. You come in here, and just like in the Excel file, you hit refresh, and it's going to give you all your new numbers.
So it's not
all your new.
Yeah, it's not as critical to save the structure. I mean, you have like a template or whatever and have the same. Now, what happens if, say, for example, you're using several QBO files and they don't necessarily have all the same data? Is that going to kind of blow up?
Right. So they all have the same structure, and that's the important thing, Dennis, right?
Yeah.
So because they have the same structure, I can go do all that cleanup work in terms of defining the columns and taking the headers off one time. And when I get to a different file, I'm literally just going to open the different file and or point to a completely different file in my source, and all the other steps remain the same. So this quick little chart that I just drew out in front of you is allowing me to go look at sales by customer, and then on the right hand side, I can pick, an item, right? And it's doing a dynamic filter, right? And I can actually continue kind of that evolution, building out lots and lots of things in here.
Yeah, they refer to those as slicers, the filter that he's doing. And that is available in Excel as well. So on that pivot table page, Ernest could have created a slicer there, and it would have adjusted the results of the pivot table based on his selections, like it's doing here.
Can you say, like, have the data set and use like crystal reports on it, make a pretty report through like OWC? Does it have an OWC driver?
So Crystal Reports is a tabular report writer.
Right.
So it turns out that inside Power BI, in the Power BI world, there are tabular report writers that are not Crystal. They compete with Crystal. So I can do tabular stuff. In a second, I'll do that. What I started was, what I wanted to show you was, once you get into Power BI and you've got your data set over there, I just clicked the button up here that said ask a question, and you can see down here, I want to see the total amount, and it's going to guess lots of different things, right? If I say total amount by sales, by product, right? It's literally building those dollar amounts for me using natural language. So that's just a part of the Power BI suite. But it all starts with kind of that idea of getting your information in a very repeatable way. So, I mean, this is not really, I didn't intend to go through a whole Power BI demonstration, but really just that idea of, if you use Power Query, you don't have to repeat the steps over and over and over again, right? Until, and I'll give that disclaimer, until QuickBooks decides they want to go change their base report, right? So when that changes, I go update it one time, and everything else is going to work.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So we're going to move on. We are about out of time. We're actually over time now. But I did want to talk to Sara about her OneNote and Teams. You've been playing a lot with that this week. Do you want to give us an update?
Well, I am trying to implement a lot more of the Microsoft tools in our office. So we've been playing with OneNote and setting up OneNotes per client and putting in procedures. And so we've been toying with that for the last year, ever since the Scaling New Heights a year ago. And then when I got back from this Scaling New Heights, I said, okay, we need to get serious about this. And so I invited them to team, and I walked in the other morning, and one gal's working from home and the other one's here, and they actually had the video up and we're talking, and one had opened the mail and said, do you need this? And she's like, oh, I need that. So she scanned it, dropped it in, and hung up one. That's the coolest thing, So I think part of implementing any new tool is getting them excited about, new features and how it can help us work. So the next step is incorporating certain clients. In other words, I want a team. I want to be able to chat. I want to do records. I want to have a team that I can share with a link to their OneNote. The OneNote has their procedures. How do I do track 1099 for the W-9s? Oh, I can just go into the OneNote, go track 1099. It's right there, screenshots. And so for training and onboarding new employees, I think it's going to be important. I have clients that I've had since the 80s. I have a bookkeeper that's been with the company for 35 years. Everything's in her head. And so I'm trying to, that's the one that I want to do. So what I was doing today was I took one employee of one client, and I said, do you have any time to play? Because I didn't want to show her manager or her boss and all that. I didn't want to learn with them, because I want to say, okay, this is the way we're going to do it, and this is what's going to happen, because I wasn't really sure what she saw on her end after I invited her. And anyway, so we spent a couple hours just inviting her, bringing her in, showing her around. I made tabs that go right to Smart Sheets and right to Excel schedules. It was a really good exercise just between the two of us to learn. One thing I found with Microsoft is it's not very intuitive sometimes. So, and all the security, I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm not exposing anything to people that shouldn't see what, So once I have the whole process, once I'm comfortable with the process, then I will invite this woman and say, I need a brain dump. I need a section, just like a notebook, a section. How do you do accounts receivable? How do you accounts payable? How do you answer the phone? Where are your files? And just type it out. Simple, because she's a typist. This woman, she's a good old fashioned. Used to spend 2 days a month typing statements for AR. Okay.
Wow.
We have no concept of this bookkeeper, but and then I'll have a document that when she retires, that we can very easily onboard the next person.
You'll be creating a procedures book.
Procedures, so
procedures manual,
policies. We threatened for years that we're going to do this. We have pieces of information, but OneNote I think is going to be my tool for really
to bring it all together. Powerful new stuff, all kinds of powerful new stuff that really, really can help. But the problem is, number one, knowing what's the right tool to use.
Exactly.
And then bringing the people on. I think I like your method, Sarah, one by one.
I have to start very small.
Yep.
It's even using the OneNote and the tools and all that for the last year. It's really been me. And then I sort of tease my employees with it, like, hey, look what I'm doing over here. And they go, But until I say as the boss, okay, this is the tool of choice, we're going to do certain things a certain way. But I haven't really been that comfortable with it. I'll tell you what I did yesterday for 4th of July, sitting on the sofa. So using an example, what do you call it, use case. I do this every year. I drop reports into Excel with 12 columns of actual. So I've got anticipated actual for the 12 months. I have the budget for last year, and then I make a column to fill in for the budget for next year. Okay. So using that template, where can I go to collaborate with a treasurer and the executive director and a finance team, me, the bookkeeper, so I want one living document. So I want two living documents. I wanted the living document for the budget template, and I wanted a general ledger dump, so that if we don't understand what a number is, we could go look it up. So my choices were Dropbox, Google Drive, ShareFile, Microsoft, or Box.
And you chose?
And so Dropbox, I don't have a corporate Dropbox, which means I'd have to use a personal to collaborate. Didn't like that, but it did everything that I wanted. He's doing this. Google Drive also has a business account. I don't have a business account, but it did everything that I wanted. So anyway, I started working with the Microsoft. I had a team. I embedded a Excel spreadsheet. Mark's going like this. And today I was able to show with this gal, she can open up the Excel spreadsheet, and then we could actually have comment threads and conversations on a cell. So if we want to go to, rent, and she has a copy, and somebody says, "Why is our rent so high?" Or, we can actually start conversation threads and actually have a living document to develop this budget. So that's what I was doing today. So I want to stay in where my company, my programs of choice is Microsoft. Now, if I were using Google Suite and Gmail and all that, then I would naturally do the business level of Google Drive.
Right.
And then you have a choice there of like a regular Excel file or a Google Sheet. But you can use a regular Excel file and still have the whole conversation collaboration. So anyway, pretty cool.
Awesome. Awesome. So today was about procedures.
Procedures, it's,
Yeah. And making life easier going forward. Repeatable steps.
Well, here's the thing. I've got one client that I said, look, it's out of scope. It's not part of our regular accounting. And they're willing to pay me to work with a staff member to develop all the policies and procedures, get with an attorney to do employee manuals, the whole bit. So here's my opportunity on the payroll to flesh out, all these issues that need to be dealt with that aren't necessarily just accounting.
Absolutely.
Part of running a business, and they look to me as part of their management team. So they talk about us being more advisory.
Well, I think there's a big hole and a big need for that kind of thing in small businesses. It's easy to do the bookkeeping work. Bookkeeping work is now going to be all AI, where the work that needs to be done is what you're talking about, Sarah. The small business owner needs employee handbooks.
Well, and simple things like
the workflow.
Getting invoices that are not really proper invoices. I'll get an invoice, don't have a date on it. I have an invoice that is in one name, and I match it up with the W-9. The W-9 is in another name. They go, "Oh, I got a W-9." But AI isn't going to be able to read.
No, absolutely not.
And then go, whoop, we just hit a roadblock in paying bills today. So, but the more you teach and the more you document it so that the next person I'm working with is helping me do payables,
You carry it over from client to client. Yes.
Yeah, operational admin. That's exactly, Sarah just said, operational admin work.
There you go.
Seem to be supporting more and more. Exactly.
I have a
That's where
question.
we have so much knowledge after years and years of working with.
Oh, really? Absolutely.
You know,
Dennis,
Sarah-
your question?
Yes, Sarah. When I was an employee, I found there's a lot of resistance to change because people thought by having a monopoly on how they do their job, they sort of provide themselves with job security, which is kind of a,
control thing, isn't it?
It is, but that's so out the window these days, Dennis.
oh yeah, it's kind of a fool's
Oh
errand.
yeah, but I'm telling you, that's, yeah, I know. I have that right now where it's like,
I
okay,
can
I'll
imagine
write it down. That's why it's good for people to go on vacation and have a second person step in and fill in for somebody.
Yeah,
That is so valuable.
That's how they find fraud too.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Alrighty, guys.
Hey, Gina, I want to do one quick alibi because there's something I
Okay.
didn't cover that I know people are going to ask. So, and that is, oh great, I created this awesome template. By the way, I changed it. I added AR so you can see what was paid and unpaid. But I created this awesome template. How do I change it to another client, right? I didn't cover that. So under Get Data, if I go down here to the data source settings, right here's where the file's coming from. I'm just going to go change the source, right? And when I change the source, I can browse to another Excel file. Maybe it's another client, right? So literally, I've used the template, and now when I go grab a different file from some other client, right? I don't have another client that I have that data for. But if I had another client, it doesn't really matter what the name of the file is. I could go grab that file, hit the import, and all of the other steps that I did would actually walk down. Right?
Nice.
And then, of course, I would save that off as a new name. I hope that's helpful to someone today.
Nice, nice. That was my big question. How do you save it from one client to another or change it? Awesome stuff today. Very, very technical today. Wow. So anything else anyone else wants to talk about before we end for the day? Accountants are quiet. That must mean they're processing. So
we're like, weekend.
yeah. We will see you all same time, same place next week.
Bye.
Bye.